Hello everyone. Today is an exciting day because I have right here in my hands my very own novel printed and published. In this video, I'm going to explain why I decided to publish my novel with Amazon KDP. In other words, my novel is self-published. It is not traditionally published by a publishing house. You won't find it in all the bookstores. The only place you can buy it is on Amazon. This is the case for several reasons, and so I'm hoping to just explain those reasons in this video in the context of my novel, A Portrait of the Malefactress as a Young Woman, which, by the way, if you are interested, at the end of this video I will give a plug on why you should read my book and how to know whether this is a book that would interest you. You know that scene in the new film version of Little Women where Jo is in the publisher's office, she's negotiating her royalties and her commissions for her book, and she decides to keep the copyright for her book. She says very stubbornly to the publisher, Mr. Dashwood, "I want to own my own book." That is in large part the main reason why I decided to self-publish my novel as opposed to pursuing publishing. I want to own my own book. Legally, of course, but also I want to reserve the right to keep and revise my novel as I want. And this is not because I think it's perfect or it can't be approved upon, or because I think an editor wouldn't offer helpful and valid criticisms and reconstruction tips, but quite simply, this book captures a part of my life that was critical to my emotional, intellectual, and spiritual development. In other words, my teenage soul is captured in this book. It chronicles in some senses my own transition from childhood to adulthood. So to be clear, this book is not autobiographical in the sense that in terms of family, events, circumstances, location, any of that, it's completely fictional and made up. The characters are fictional, the setting is fictional, the story is fictional. It does not follow the trajectory of my life, but it does reflect some of my experiences and my thoughts and feelings as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult, and some of the struggles that I went to and some of the philosophizing that I did growing up. And of course, the main character does have some traits that also belong to me. So my novel is very, very personal and very, very tied to a specific point in my life. In a sense, it's a time capsule of a stage of my life, a stage that I will always look back on with mixed emotions, but nonetheless, I want to preserve it as it is, as it was. I want to, in a sense, preserve my teenage mind, my teenage soul, the teenage soul that was writing this book. So in large part, I wrote this book for myself and as a way to transport my future self back to my past self. Hence why I want it to stay exactly as it is, to preserve the truth of myself and my experience as it was at a given point in my life. I'm not willing to revise what to my teenage self was perfectly written, perfectly summing up an experience, perfectly captured the emotion my teenage self was trying to communicate. And I know that part of the traditional publishing process is revision, 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 edit, edit, cut, add. And the author kind of needs to do what the editor says in that regard, in terms of what the editor thinks will sell best, etc. And I'm not really willing to go there with that novel. Perhaps with future novels, yes, but not with this one, just because of what it meant to me as I was writing it, as I was growing up. Another reason that I decided to self-publish was that I simply ran out of time and energy to pursue traditional publishing. So I am a high school teacher, I'm a master's student, I'm a wife, I'm a friend, I have a busy social life in terms of keeping up with friends and family and church life, and I also try to reserve any spare time that I have for reading for pleasure and personal development, writing, producing more literature, making YouTube videos obviously, exercising to maintain my physical and mental health, and just working on other creative projects. So essentially, in the spring, right after I had finished my novel, I reached out to about a dozen different literary agents that I found online, just kind of pitching my book to them, asking them if they'd be interested in representing my book, and I only heard back from a few of them, and they were not interested in representing my book. I did hear back from a few of those hybrid publishing companies who wanted me to pay a huge sum up front in order for them to publish and market my book, and I decided not to take that route for various reasons. And so after that, I kind of just put my inquiries on the back burner. I just didn't have time. It was impossible for me at that stage of my life to keep pursuing traditional publishing. And I've heard that if you reach out to 100 literary agents, you might hear back from less than 10 of them, and you're lucky and blessed if 1 or 2 of them actually want to represent your book. If that's kind of the scale we're working with, typically, there's no way that in my spare time I can reach out to hundreds of literary agents in the hopes that they might get back to me when none of them might get back to me, and then there goes all that time that I didn't have. So in the end, it was just easier and more practical for me to publish with Amazon KDP. All I had to do was upload a document. I got a good friend of mine to design a cover for the book, put it all together, and Amazon KDP essentially does the rest. And so I'm holding the first print edition, paperback edition of my book, and I think it looks great. And sure, it wasn't exactly easy to format a document as I would want it to appear in a book, and I had to kind of think through that kind of structure myself, but it was a worthwhile experience, and it turned out great. It worked. So I'm very happy with this product right here. It feels like a good quality book. The pages are beautiful. They're a nice cream color. They're good quality. The print looks great. So far, absolutely no complaints with this. A third reason why I decided to pursue self-publishing was that I struggled to gauge the value and the level of my writing. Is this book even good enough to be traditionally published is the question that I had to ask myself, and I'm still asking myself, and I still don't know the answer to. So, A Portrait of the Malefactress of the Young Woman is a work of literary fiction. I do think it's deeper than a lot of the books that I see in the bookstores and that are popular on TikTok and Book Talk. My book is not simple. It has layers. It has obvious and less obvious themes. It references and interacts with other literature. And overall, I do think it's original and it stands out in its own right. Although, of course, some of the themes and some of the aesthetics in here are found in other literature. I'm not saying this is the most original book to ever be read, but I do think it's unlike anything that I've read in my life. At the end of the day, I am proud of this book, especially since so much of it was written when I was just a teenager and I didn't know anything. And yeah, I do want people to read this, and I do think it's worth people's time to read this book. But again, I don't necessarily think it's my best work or the best I can do. It is definitely a debut novel, and I've learned a lot by writing and self-publishing this book that I think will help me produce even greater literature, even better novels in the future, which hopefully 1 or 2 of them or all of them will be published traditionally one day. But again, I'm just not sure what a traditional publisher would think about this book, especially since it doesn't exactly go along with trends or kind of buy into the dominant worldview that's present in most popular literature today. Yeah, and of course, self-doubt is just part of being a writer, being an author, and I'll never know if a traditional publisher actually would have loved this book and wanted to publish it because I stopped pursuing that and decided just to put this thing on Amazon, get myself a copy, get my friends to get copies, share it with you guys here on YouTube, that kind of thing. So I have a lot of questions about this book that will never be answered, and it is what it is. I've made the decision to self-publish it, and here it is, and now I'm happy to let this project rest and to focus my attentions on new projects. So why should you read A Portrait of the Malefactress as a young woman? This book is about a young girl who struggles with her identity and self-worth and tries to base it in her intellectual and literary achievement. It's about a girl who's obsessed with knowledge, with obtaining secret knowledge, and with using that knowledge to kind of elevate herself above the people she grew up with, above the town that she lives in. This is a dark family history. Our main character comes from a complicated and just straight up dark family. And again, this is not based on my own life. My family is wonderful. This book is about grief and death and loss. This book is about love and what it is and what it looks like and what it's for. As our main character grows into adolescence and adulthood, of course she has love interests, and she's actually quite crazy about men, and she learns to use men to her advantage and for her purposes. This book is about academia and scholarship and being a university student and what that means and what that looks like. This book is about the power of the written word versus the power of the spoken word. This book is about achieving originality and uniqueness, and if it's even possible to be a unique person in the world, because our main character is obsessed with being unique and having something special and something secret that no one else in the world has, and she just discovers as she grows up that there's always going to be somebody who's thought of this first, or read this first, or loved this first before her. And it's not really possible to be a one-of-a-kind individual without being influenced by anyone else, or without being influenced by history, by your past, by those around you. You are the product of your surroundings and the influences that have surrounded you growing up. You don't exist in a vacuum, and you might be more like your family and like the place where you came from than you believe and that you want to be. This book is about bad decision making in university, specifically, and the repercussions of that. This book is about despair and what it looks like to kind of give up. This book shows how certain worldviews can lead to despair and lead you to give up on life and no longer find joy in anything, not even the things that you spent your whole life chasing, thinking they would give you joy. Those are just a few of the themes that come to mind when I'm thinking about A Portrait of the Malefactress. It's about so much more than that. I spent 5 years working on this back and forth. This was an idea born in my high school brain, carried on with me into university. I've put a lot into this book. I've put a lot of my emotions over the years into this book. When I was going through hard things in university, this book is where I went with them. All that to say, I would so appreciate it if you took the time to read my book, and if you took the time to let me know what you think of it. If you think it's trash, maybe please don't tell me that. But any serious and helpful criticisms I will take. Any positive feedback, I would love to hear that, of course. My book is available on Amazon as an ebook. You can find it in the Kindle store. It's available as a paperback worldwide, at least it should be. It's available as a hardcover in the United States. That's not available in Canada, and I'd have to pay an arm and a leg to get a hardcover copy shipped over to me. So I don't have a hardcover copy, and I'm not sure what that final product looks like. If you're an American citizen and you ordered a hardcover and for some reason something was not right about it, I would love to know that and fix that. I really hope that's not the case. And I don't think it will be, but you never know. That's the thing about self-publishing, right? Basically, any issues kind of do come back to me and are my responsibility to fix. So, yeah. Read this on your Kindle, read this in print, and I would so appreciate that support from you. And I'm so excited to hear what the world has to say about this book, and if it will mean anything to anyone, and if anyone will relate to it, and if it was all worth writing this, which I know that even if nobody buys it and nobody likes it, it was still worth writing it for me because of the sentimental value and because this is a time capsule for me to return to and remember my teenage struggles, the plight of my young adulthood. The novel summary that I sent one of the literary agents that I inquired to is as follows. A Portrait of the Malefactress as a Young Woman is an ahistorical coming-of-age tale set in the Netherlands. The protagonist, Anneke Marie Langenberg, endures a difficult childhood under her father, the town preacher, but finds solace in great literature, the accumulation of knowledge, and the presence of her faithful friend Jelle van Boven. As a young woman, Anneke moves to Amsterdam to pursue a university degree in history, only for her personal history to thwart her ambition to achieve intellectual greatness. Haunted by uncertainty about truth and religion, and accosted by physical temptations on every side, particularly in her relationships with the brilliant Martijn Koning and the vexing Frans Bakker, Anneke fulfills the preacher's haunting adage, man becomes what he is, and in a state of despair flees to Italy to indulge in hedonistic forgetting. 2 years later, Anneke is forced to return from her self-prescribed exile and discovers that her childhood home is an entirely new place, and that the answers she's been searching for are in the person of her old friend, Jelle. Yeah, thank you so much for watching this video and listening to me chat about my book. And again, I so appreciate your support of my channel and of my book. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next one. Bye-bye.